Hello. Hi, I'm just going to wait and see if anybody's here. I hope they are. Hello, I'm Julietta Henderson, and I'm going to be talking about my book called The Funny Thing About Norman Foreman. Gosh, it's everywhere on the screen now. It's there, it's there. I'll just wait for a moment and see if there's some people coming in. We'll give people time to relax and sit in there with your cup of tea or your glass of wine. Personally, I've got a cup of tea because it's very cold and wet and rainy here in Melbourne. Okay. So I'm Julietta Henderson, and I am here to talk to you about my book called The Funny Thing About Norman Foreman. I'm here for the fabulous Better Reading community, and as most of you would know, if you're tuning in, I guess you already know about Better Reading, and it's such a fantastic community. So thank you. I feel very privileged to be invited on, and lovely to put some names to, well, I was going to say faces to names, but you can put a face to my name. So hello to everyone. Oh, I can see all the people coming in. I already recognize some names from other lives that I've watched and Jane and Cheryl's broadcast. So hi, Malvina. Hi, Jane. Hi, Tracy, Carolyn. Lovely to see you all here. Oh, thank you, Malvina. That's a great comment for me to start with because I'm pretty nervous. So that's lovely to hear Malvina says she loves my book. Thank you so much. And I'm so pleased that, so I don't know how many of you will have read it. A few of you will read it, a few will be unfamiliar too. So, oh, there's a few people in here now, so I may as well just go in and tell you all about it. So the funny thing about Norman Foreman is my debut. It's not the first book that I've written, like a lot of authors. There's a few in the bottom shelf, but it's the first one that's been published, and it's been published in Australia. It came out in January in Australia. Hi, Sandra. Oh, Sandra, thank you so much. Sandra says she loved Norman. Thank you. Yeah, so it's been published in Australia since January, and I don't know if you can see, I don't normally have fabulous bunches of flowers like the ones behind, but that's that way. But that's from my UK publisher because I've had a big week this week. The book's being published in the UK, and it's also been published in the US and Holland and Germany. So it's been a great time for me. So I'll just get on and talk about the book first, and then hopefully you'll have some questions. Feel free to ask questions, anything about the book itself. If you haven't read it, ask some questions to see if you find out you might like to read it. If you have read it and you have any questions, please ask them. And anything about my writing process, my journey to publication, anything at all. Oh, Tracy Anderson says, I haven't read it yet, but I do own it. Oh, fantastic. Oh, thank you, Tracy. And looking forward to reading it. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing what you think. Jenny McCabe, my lovely friend Jenny McCabe. Hello, Jenny. Thank you. She loved my book. And even though she's my friend, I believe her because she's a very big bookie. So I'll just get right in and talk about it. So the funny thing about Norman Foreman is about 12-year-old Norman Foreman, not surprisingly. He and his best friend Jax are big fans of the old-time comedy heroes, the old-time British comedy heroes, and they've got a very ambitious plan to take their own fledgling comedy act all the way to the famous Edinburgh Fringe. And it's not a spoiler to tell you this, Jax dies. I mean, Jax dies before the book even starts, to be honest. So Norman's left on his own and obviously devastated because Jax was his only friend and his little partner in crime and in comedy. So Norman's just left as really devastated and just half of a comedy duo and not the funny half, unfortunately. The story's just as much about his mother, Sadie. She's a single mother, and she's done her best to bring Norman up her entire life. And she sees her son trying to navigate this grief that's really way too much for a poor little 12-year-old kid to have to deal with. And all she wants is to see him happy again. And so she resolves not only to make his dream come true and get him to the Edinburgh Fringe to perform, but also to track down the father that Norman's never known. And he could be one of numerous people. So the book it's a road trip. It sounds, as I say, it's a pretty hard ask to start a story with the death of a child, and it sounds a little bit sad, but I can guarantee that it's not sad, because whilst it does tackle some, some fairly hard topics, I hope, and I have been told, assured that I've face them with sensitivity and with humour as well. So really it's a book about, while it is about grief and navigating your way through grief, it's also about hope. In fact, it's mainly about hope and finding happiness even in the darkest of times. Now, I'm just going to have a look. Oh, Josephine Moon. Hi, Josephine. Josephine says, I loved your book so much. Thank you, Josephine. I love yours as well. Julie Foster, what a lovely surprise tonight. I've loved this book so much. Oh, thank you, Julie. I've been recommending it to everyone. Oh, thank you so much, Julie. It's so nice to see people. It's really hard when you've written a book and you know it's out there and you know it's on the shelf and you know it's selling. So you think people are reading it, but it's really, this is amazing to see people that have read it and making comments. Hi, Beverly Cousins, my beautiful publisher in Australia. Thank you, Bev. She loved it too. Obviously she did. Jane, how was it to hold your book in your hands? I've just lost that question. How was it to hold your book in your hands? And are you happy with the cover? Jane, it was an amazing feeling to hold this book in my hands. The first time I held it in my hands was actually in the UK, and I held a proof copy in my hands and I couldn't stop. Well, first of all, I couldn't bring myself to look at it, because when I first walked in, when I first saw it, it was in a room at Transworld in the UK, and there was about 20 of them lined up, and I'd never seen them before, and I actually couldn't look at them at first because I was so excited, but then I couldn't stop looking at them. And the cover is, the cover is amazing. I hope people do agree. I mean, it's such a stunning cover. There is another cover, which is the US cover, which is very different. But everywhere else has pretty much taken this cover, the same Australian cover and the UK cover, and everywhere else that I know so far. So yes, I'm very happy about it. Thank you. Now, someone said, what inspired the story? That's Bev says, what inspired the story? To be honest, the characters inspired the story, really, because Norman and Sadie came to me way before the plot did. I was actually writing a different book at the time, and I just couldn't, this little boy's voice in my head just wouldn't go. And really, I know all authors say this, well, not all authors, but a lot of authors say the characters came to them fully formed. Well, they actually did. And I had the characters of Norman and Sadie in my head for a very long time before I even put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard. And this, because I knew them so well right from the start, I just started writing just their story about I knew it was a boy. I knew Norman was a boy. I knew Sadie was a single mother. And I also knew he was a comedy fan. And so then the plot grew out of the characters, really. And I happened to be in Penzance in the south of England when I first started, or when the story first came to me. So that's actually where they set off for their journey from as well, which is really good. And the other thing that, when you talk about inspiration, I think, and I have been asked this question, so I've had to sort of prepare a little answer in my head, because I thought, well, I wasn't really quite sure what my actual inspiration was. But when I distill it down, I think the question that I really explored, that I followed, and that went all the way through the book and was there right from the beginning to the end of the process, was just the thought of, we all have to go through terrible grief in our life. We're very lucky if we don't, but most people have to go through some kind of grief in their life. And to me, I've always felt like there has to be a bit of a payoff at some stage. So, the universe giving you something nice. And so the question is, what if the worst thing that ever happened in your life could actually lead you to the best time of your life? And that's kind of the question I started with. And that's the question that ends up being answered in this book. So thank you for the question, Bev. Wendy says, my sister is just about to present her novel to an editor. Any suggestions? Wow. Yeah. I guess my only suggestion is probably what she already would know herself, is just to read it, edit yourself, and don't present it to anyone really until it's as good as you possibly can make it yourself. believe me, it'll never be the end. I mean, when I presented mine to my agent, I angsted over it for a long time, and I thought it's as good as it's perfect for me. And of course it wasn't. And of course there was a year of process of working with several people, that things change. But I would just say, Wendy, to tell her not to cut corners. Just don't. You only get one, that saying, you only get one chance to make a first impression, or a good first impression. So just make it the best that you possibly can. Don't hurry it, because there's really no hurry. Raquel, thank you. Raquel says it was an amazing book. I loved it. When will you write another book? Today. I've been writing it today. I am writing book number 2. Is very far advanced. I'm very terrified because I haven't shown it to anybody. I'm due to deliver that to my agent end of June. So fingers crossed that's going to happen. I'm on track at the moment. It's very different to Norman, but I think the only way I can describe it is it's very different because obviously, no two stories should be the same. And I don't want to write the same story every time I write a book. But what's important to me is what the reader is going to take away from any book that I write. And I think, and I hope, and what I'm aiming for is that the reader will take away the same feelings that they take away from Norman. They'll take away from book number 2. Hello, Jane Ferris. Anyone who's read this book, I'm going to embarrass Jane, my lovely friend Jane Ferris. Anyone who's read this book, Jane actually makes a cameo appearance in this book. And she's asked very cheekily, who's your favourite character? Well, Jane, of course, it's Mrs. Ferris, the teacher. Who isn't? But I do, she's only a very small part. In all seriousness, of course, I love Norman, I love Sadie, I love them all, but I do have a very soft spot for Leonard, who is, for people who haven't read the book, Leonard is their friend who helps them. And he's an 80-something-year-old gentleman with a real zest for life who drives them from Penzance to Edinburgh. And so Leonard is absolutely a favourite of mine. And I would have to say, because so many people have asked me, are you writing a sequel or are you going to write a sequel? I will never say never. I can't imagine writing a sequel to Norman anytime soon because he's still a 12-year-old boy. I think it would have to have any great interest, unless he has the same adventure all over again, and he would have to be a little bit older. But I will say I'm not sure that I'm finished with Leonard. So that's all I'll say. Thank you, Jane, for that question, that trick question. Mary Ladrick said, I would love to listen to the audiobook. Mary, I would love you to listen to the audiobook because I don't know if Catherine Parkinson is the wonderful, wonderful actress who narrated the audiobook. And she's not so big over here, but she's quite well known in the UK. But she's done such a fabulous job of it. But the wonderful story about that is that, and I've mentioned this in a couple of interviews because it's one of the most exciting things that happen in the whole process of publication, is that when I first started writing Norman and Sadie, I'm very visual, so I had a little picture of a very nondescript little boy. So I had him in my head, and I know who Norman is, but he's nobody, he's someone off the internet. I don't know who he is, but I'll never show, just in case he belongs to somebody. But Sadie, for me, I always loved Catherine Parkinson as an actress, and she was in, some people might know her from the very original Doc Martin series, and she's Jen from the IT Crowd, and she's in quite a few series and things. But I've always loved her as an actress, and for some reason, to me, she was the perfect Sadie. And so I took a screenshot of her from something off the internet, and I had it sitting on my desktop, and that was who I wrote to as Sadie. So every time, so she's always been Sadie to me. And then last year, I suppose it's the year before now. Oh no, it was last year when I was in the UK and they were casting the audiobook. They said to me, we're casting the, do you have any ideas? And I said, well, no, I don't know, and I told them this story. I said, just as a matter of interest. And to cut a long story short, the next minute she read the book, she agreed to do it. It's the first audiobook she's done, and she absolutely loved it. And she has done the most amazing job. I could not ask for more. And I think it's really because, I mean, she does actually do the part of Norman as well. It was going to be a male actor do the second part, but she actually requested, when she started doing her parts, she actually requested that she would do both parts. So it was more like a narration rather than a, you know, like a separate, I don't know how you'd call it, almost like a radio play sort of thing. It's how some audiobooks have different people. But she wanted to do both parts, and they said, what do you think? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm new at all this. I don't know. Yeah, as if I'm going to say no to the woman that I really wanted to do it. And it's honestly, if you can listen to the audiobook and you're an audiobook person, please do, because she has done an amazing job. So Mary, I hope you do get to listen to it, and I highly recommend it. And incidentally, I put on my Instagram yesterday, they sent me a clip of the Dutch audiobook, and it's so funny because it's two separate people, and it's just like amazing hearing it read in Dutch, but very different. And I didn't know what they were saying. Oops. Oh, sorry. Michelle Beasley. Hi, Michelle. I recognize Michelle. I know Michelle. She's been a champion of Norman right from the start. Thank you, Michelle. You're one of the first people to really get behind Norman. Michelle says, I love this story and the beautiful mother and son relationship. Is this your childhood dream come true? I don't know. I mean, I have a lovely family. I had a lovely upbringing. I don't have children myself, but I don't know. I think there's a very special, I think every parental relationship is, you know, obviously special, but I always thought because I've got a few single parents that are single parents, male and female, and it always struck me that it's kind of I shouldn't say extra special, but there's a little something extra, I think, because as a single parent with a single child, just one child, I think you just have to be each other's heroes. And I think, and that's exactly how I wrote it, because Sadie and Norman are each other's heroes. So I guess, yeah, I mean, I think that would be everyone's childhood dream, to have an amazing relationship like Sadie and Norman. So yeah, I think so, Michelle. We've got, Malvina. Hi, Malvina. Malvina says, I love Jax. I wanted him to karate my door open like he karates Norman's door open. Yeah. He seemed like such a vibrant character in the book. I mourned with them all. Yeah, Malvina, I'm really glad you say that. Sorry that he made you unhappy, but also made you happy as well. That was a very conscious decision from the beginning, that even though Jax is not alive in any of the book, I wanted him to be a really major character and for his spirit to sort of go through the whole book. So I love him as well. Thanks, Malvina. Jenny McCabe. Any offers yet to make this into a movie? That would be great. Well, you know how people love to be really, like nose tapping and stuff like that. I have to be a bit like that, because I can't say anything. Yes, I'd love it to be made into a movie, but nothing's happening at the moment. There's interest, but these things take time. And look, fingers crossed, if all the stars align and, all the ducks get in a row, it would be lovely. It would be great. Yep, great dream. But I can't say anything at the moment. Thanks, Jenny. Hi, Wendy. Hi, Bev. Bev, would you like to set a book in Australia one day? Yes, Bev, I definitely would. Actually, somebody said to me once that I could have made this, Norman could be travelling from Cairns to Melbourne to the Melbourne Fringe or something like that. But anyway, I didn't. So yes, definitely, I absolutely want to set. And I've actually got quite a few ideas of books that I would like to set in Australia along the same lines, like a sort of a comedy, but yeah, definitely, most definitely the answer to that. And for people who might wonder why this book is set in the UK when I'm clearly an Australian, I spent many years in the UK, and I still go back and forwards, not so much at the moment, obviously. And I lived there for probably all up, I don't even know, 15 to 18 years. And I've got a very established life, family, group of friends over there. I feel like I've got one foot here and one foot in the UK. And it happens that book 2 is also set in the UK for various reasons. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I very much feel like a citizen of both countries, although I'm a very proud Australian, and obviously from my accent, I'm definitely Australian, but I've got great ties to the UK. Tracy says, it does sound like it would make a great movie. Fingers crossed. Yeah, me too. Thank you. Malvina. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Mina says, hi. Hi, Mina. Leah Penovic says, I love this book so much. A wonderful story and characters. Oh, thank you, Leah. I'm so glad. Jane said Leonard's her favourite character as well. I know quite a few people seem to have fallen for Leonard. He's a bit of a cheeky old chappy. And Jane Tara says, do you think you'd ever revisit these characters later? Well, yeah, I sort of answered that. I missed that question. Sorry, Jane. I will never say never, but I would suspect that if I do, it would be Leonard before it would be Norman again, just to let Norman grow up and maybe sort of change a little bit, and we'll see. Wendy, oh no, we've done that one. Oh, Geraldine, Geraldine Farini says, a wonderful story. I just love Norman so much. The audiobook was excellent too. Oh, thank you, Geraldine. I'm glad you listened to that as well. It was wonderful. Esme says, it's such a fantastic book. Where did you get inspiration from? It was really, Esme, from the characters, as I touched on before. And the story came because I wanted Norman to be a fan of all the same old comedians that I grew up with, all the old time British comedians. And so, and I wanted him to have a lot of challenges in his life, as he does. He suffers with the death of his friend Jackson. He also suffers from bad psoriasis. But I really wanted him to be a hopeful character, and he had to be a brave little character. And so the inspiration was really giving the poor kid as many challenges as he could face, and then having him come through it and be, triumphant at the end. Lynn says, reading and hearing all these positive comments about your book, I better go out and buy this ASAP and put on my reading stack. Oh, good, Lynn. I hope you do. And also, for anyone who's watching, I think personally it would make a wonderful Mother's Day present. I'm planning on sending my mother another one as well. She's only got about 10 of them. Jane says, what's your workday like? Where do you write? Well, a lot of the time I write exactly right here where I'm sitting now, which overlooks quite a busy street where they've been shooting. It's been closed for the last 3 days because they've been shooting a Hollywood movie here. So it's all been very exciting. But a lot of the time I write in libraries a lot. I write in my local library in Port Melbourne. I write in the State Library in Port Melbourne. I've written the book I wrote partially in Australia, partially in the UK, partially in Italy, which makes me sound like I'm a real jet setter, but actually it was just because it took me so long. I moved all around the world and wrote it at the same time. But yeah, and my day is, I do have to do some day job work, so I try and get that out of the way in blocks of days. I find that I can't really do both because I don't have any creative space left once I've been writing, because I write for a living as well, but it's very different sort of writing. So, and then I try and put aside entire days to write, and then I procrastinate for about 6 hours and write for about 2. So, and that's no joke. I'm trying harder. Emma Tingay says, I loved Leonard and especially his relationship with Norman. Yeah, me too. Michelle Beasley says, what's your favourite part of the writing process? Well, as I've discovered, my favourite part of the writing process is actually the editing, which is what a lot of people don't like. And I'm talking about my editing. I'm not talking about necessarily my editor's editing, although I did find that, whilst not quite a pleasure, you couldn't call it a pleasure, I found it a really easy, a really easy process. And I just sort of kept an open mind and knew what the experts were talking, let the experts do their job sort of thing. And I listened a lot because it was my first book. I will be listening a lot because it's my second book as well. But I have found that it took me, like everyone else through COVID, I did manage to really knock over a lot of book 2. And now that I'm in the editing process reading it, I honestly, without a word of a lie, I cannot remember about 50% of it. I can't remember writing it. And some of it I'm like, oh, yeah, that's pretty good. And some of it is absolute twaddle. But I find it's so much less daunting for me having that, I had 105,000 words or something, and it really was nonsense. A lot of it was all over the place and whatever. But now that I'm editing it and I'm finding stuff that I never knew was there, and it's, a lot of it's got to go because the whole story's changed and all of that. But I absolutely love that. I do love the editing process. I love the sort of, the twisting of words and the making of the perfect sentence, and the really getting into the character, developing the characters. And and so I suppose that's the answer to your question, Michelle, is developing the characters and really getting to know them, and realizing that the greatest part about writing is you can do whatever you like. You can make people do whatever you like, which is really nice. Sandra, do you have a favorite genre to read? I actually read everything, Sandra. I read widely. I read everything with the exception of sci-fi. I have done on purposefully because to read and look at structure and things like that. But I mainly read books that have, it's hard to say this because every book should have a heart, but I really like to feel hopeful at the end of a read. It doesn't have to be a happy ending, but I like to feel like the characters have achieved something, or, my most favorite book that I never stop banging on about and never will, and my very favorite book of most recent times, is The Last Migrations by Charlotte McConaghy, or Migrations. That I found was astounding. I love that book. But then I also just finished recently, The Thursday Murder Club, and I love that as a bit of fun and games. But anything by Nick Hornby, anything by Frederick Buckman, Jonas Johannesson, I think I've got that name wrong, but him anyway, about the 100-year-old man that climbs out the window. I like a bit of fun, but I also like to read the books I like to write. I like to make people laugh and I like to make people cry. So I kind of like books like that. So, Leah, when I see this book on my bookshelf, I smile remembering the characters. That's so nice. A story I'll not forget. Oh, Leah, that's so nice. That's exactly the reaction that I want to leave readers with. I want readers to feel really happy and not feel like they wasted their time by reading it, and just to get something out of it, whether it's a smile, whether you get something deeper out of it, or you just think that it was a fun read. That's sort of, that's my aim, and I'm very lucky to be able to do it. So, yeah. Geraldine says, what made you choose a particular medical condition for Norman? Sorry if I missed this earlier. No, I haven't answered that. I have various skin conditions myself, but not psoriasis or eczema or anything like that. I just have allergies. But I also, I've had a lot to do with people that have had eczema and psoriasis, and I just, I don't want to say I wanted to shine a light on anything like that, but I wanted to just make the point that even if people look a little bit different, or they're a little bit shocking, or that they're a person inside and that there's a story behind them. And I don't know, I guess to bring, not even consciously bringing awareness to it, but just putting it out there, the whole diversity thing. Diversity comes in many shapes and forms, also in skin conditions, so kind of, I think that's the intention, Geraldine. Whether it was conscious or not, it was, that was my intention. So, yeah. So what else have I got here? I love Leonard. Oh, we've read that. I think I've read all that. I think I've had my 5-minute reminder, and I think it's time to go. I can't believe that you know what Jane and Dex said to me, don't be nervous. This half hour goes so quick, and you'll go, wow, that was so much fun and it went so quick. Don't worry about it. And I was really nervous, but it's been wonderful. Thank you so much for coming along. Thank you so much to Better Reading, because Better Reading have been a wonderful support to Norman right from the start. Thank you so, so much. Here's the book. Buy it for your mum or yourself for Mother's Day. And it's been so nice to be with this Better Reading community, and to sort of connect with all you guys on message here. So thank you so much for coming, and I hope to see you all again sometime.